So a thought, if you've ever been told that you have an argument or a statement that's subjective and you've taken it as a dismissal or it's been meant as a dismissal, it's good to remember that when you have your entire objective universe and then someone says that you have something that's subjective, subjectivity is still within the realm of objectivity. It's not some weird Descartesian dualist thing. Subjectivity is emergent from objectivity. So there's really no dismissal in there. It's a smaller realm of inclusion. And here's how I like to address that. If you had a computer and you try to run some software on it, and then the software didn't run because it was maybe Windows software you're trying to run on a Macintosh device, you wouldn't simply say, well, this is rubbish because it doesn't belong here. For your sake, for your purposes, yes, it's practically useless, but that data still has meaning. That's actually a valid bit of data, and no one would really deny that. Somebody else with a Windows computer would say it's very valuable, and we call it subjectivity. But when we talk about human beings, we don't even give a subjective argument the same amount of credence, the same amount of value we'd give something like a piece of software for another operating system. It's just completely useless. The best example of this is in the placebo effect. We often say something along the terms of, oh, well, it was just in their mind. Oh, they just had a sugar pill and they, the just in your mind concept is such a marginalizing thing, and it is unfortunately actually damaging to the power of human configuration. And here's what I mean by that. So let's say we had two individuals. Create this little experiment, right? We have one individual in the room with a cup of liquid, and let's say this liquid is actually classified as a stimulant. We have a room separating another individual. While you're in the room with this cup of a classified stimulant, you tell individual A, well, this is a depressant and we want to observe what happens when you drink it. And he drinks it, and being told it's a depressant, he ends up experiencing depressant symptoms. And then you have this individual leave the room. So then individual B is brought into the room with no knowledge of what happened in the room prior with individual A. You give him this container, not telling him anything about it, saying, just please drink it. And it being a stimulant, he receives stimulant symptoms as expected. So often we treat this entire kind of placebo effect as if though it were just marginalized, as it was just in individual A's mind. Because it would make no scientific or reasonable sense to say that because I said this container was a depressant, that it changed its configuration in such a way that it magically enchanted it to become a depressant, especially since when individual B entered the room, it maintained its actual classified configuration. But it's because we are so caught up in this fake idea of magic, or this abundant idea of removing the observer from science, that we don't actually think about what really happened here. When we gave individual A the instruction that this was a depressant, we configured him to allow him to imbibe a stimulant as a depressant. So while we say that this is classified as a stimulant, it's not really classified as a stimulant. It is classified as a compound which acts as a stimulant in 80% of the humanoid population, except in those humanoids who have been primed and configured to operate with such compound as a depressant. It's not just a stimulant. It's the same way that chocolate is poison for dogs. Does that mean that chocolate is classified as a poison, or that it's classified as a food or a sweetener. It's classified for whatever it is to the person that's there, and that's what subjectivity is. Subjectivity has to do with the fact that we have the ability to configure conscious things, and even to some level unconscious things like computers and cell phones. A cell phone can be a calculator, it could be a phone, it could be an alarm clock, because we can allow it to change its configuration. That level of subjectivity, giving us the ability to remember how powerful we can program one another, or even ourselves, to even allow the entire world itself to act differently in regards to our own configuration. That's what subjectivity really is. And that's beautiful, because when you said to this person, this is a depressant, you gave him the objective to operate with this classified stimulant as a depressant. So it is something very objective in there. It's objective in the instruction of the configuration. So subjectivity is a huge illusion. There is a huge amount of objectivity in there, as long as you have access to the process of the configuration that allowed the objective we got. And sometimes that happens by accident, but it's always emergent of something objective, and to an objective that is isolated into a subjective classification in the subject either A or B. So whenever somebody says that you have a subjective argument or that you're making a subjective statement, it's not a dismissal. It's actually a validation that you've managed to create an isolated enough configuration of the universe in your subject to allow an objective to be carried on within that program configuration. So I encourage everybody to be as subjective as possible, because it's the quickest, fastest way to carry on objective experiments and to really accomplish some big things in the world. Allow yourself to be subjectively configured to any of the goals and objectives you want, and you'll more than likely succeed.